I'm writing my last book. Why? Because the computers will write them in the future.
Right.
And so now...
I was going to get to that. I'm glad you said it.
Well, I'm doing my book right now, and I'm saying, in the voice of Greg S. Reid, tell me an original quote about perseverance. And it's coming up with stuff better than I could come up with. And I've been testing it. Wow. So I would post on Instagram an original Greg Reid quote and then one that was made by AI as Greg Reid. And I'd get more feedback from the fake one.
Whoa.
Interesting, right?
Shit's about to go down. I'm feeling something in my spirit.
Chats and Tatts with Aaron Della Vedova.
Hello, friends, lovers of tattoo and art and anything awesome. Let me give you a little quote. A dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. A plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. That hit me. I mean, I felt that one. And the man I have on today actually wrote that. He is a keynote speaker. He's a best-selling author, 150 books now in 45 languages. He's a film producer, and he's a guy who works heavily in the personal development field. So with all that being said, I think he has a lot of wisdom to impart upon me and you guys today on how to win in life and how to be successful and how to find contentment, happiness, and all the things we're all hunting and looking for. I think he's going to be a great guest for all of that. So if you're into those types of things, stay on this program and stay paying attention. And with all that being said, please welcome my guest today, Greg Reid.
And then the crowds go wild. Okay, so this quote. When you do a book, a lot of people don't know this, you write something called a query letter. It says who you are, what's your message, why an expert, who's going to read your book. I sent, I think 8 query letters out every single week, and I got turned down 268 times for my first book. And the 269th one said, we'll do your book, just change the title, beginning, middle, and end. Now, the reason is I'm dyslexic. I can't spell, read, write very well. But what's interesting is that book went on to become kind of a global phenomenon. And that quote came from that book that was shared 37 million times. And the moral is if I would have quit after 50 rejections or 100 or 212, millions of people would not have heard that. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Yeah. Never let another person or yourself talk you out of what you know to be true.
That's incredible. Perseverance.
Yeah, Stickability, which is another book.
Well, what was it? What book did that quote come from?
The Millionaire Mentor. That was the first book I ever did.
Okay.
And it was interesting. So back in the day, I ran a telemarketing company. I sold CPS, cheap plastic stuff, like imprinted pens and keychains with names and logos. Right. And they asked me to speak at a university because I sold the business for millions of dollars. And some kid said, you should write a book. I go, that's a great goal because I've never really read a book from beginning to end. So I sat down, and that's why this came to be. And it was interesting. I mentor inner city kids in San Diego, happened to be successful. So I drive up in the new car. The kids would say, here comes my millionaire mentor. Became kind of a badge of honor where the president of the United States wrote a letter of commendation and changed my life and community. And so I decided to title the book, The Millionaire Mentor, because it's not about making money. It's about passing your knowledge and wisdom to the next generation.
Interesting. And I'm glad you said that because I think this personal development genre is, well, I guess littered with a little bit of emphasis, too much emphasis, in my opinion, on how to become wealthy. Like it's a money. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying that whole genre of readability and all the messages that are, people are flocking towards it. Mostly they'll tell you this and that, but mostly it's like, teach me how to be rich, you know? But I don't think that's the angle you're coming at here.
No, in fact, I write the Think and Grow Rich series, Napoleon Hill Foundation. Right. And what's really interesting is it's more about the message than the messenger to me. So it's all about not the guru status of look what I've done and how great you are, but I also sort of wanted to break down what wealth really meant. So there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. And so I went on a 3-year journey and I did a book called Wealth Made Easy. And I interviewed people worth $100 million to $1 billion. You know what my biggest discovery is? I don't think I'd ever want to be worth $100 million because the people worth $100 to $300 million are some of the most miserable people I ever met in my life.
Really?
Yeah. The new Beverly Hillbilly guys, had a quick exit, made $10 million and they got a comfortable life. 10 million and below seem to be the happiest people. Billionaires, happy. But people worth $100 to $300 million, they're so far away from the B number that they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. They got 3 cell phones. They've got illnesses. It wasn't happy people. And so for myself, I said, wait, what do you do to jump to the front of the line? But one of the favorite interviews, have you ever heard of a Lamborghini?
Yeah.
So Tonino Lamborghini and I sat down and I said, how did you and your dad create so much wealth and abundance? And he said this great line. He says, all you have to do is create a product, good, service, or experience like you've got right now, where people save their money to happily hand it to you. And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, no one's saving their money to buy your book, but they're going to cash in their 401k to drive my car. He says, you're not going to spend $3,000 a night to live in your own apartment, but you'll go to Anaheim and give it to a mouse with big ears. He goes, if you can create a product, good, service, or experience that people save their money to give to you, you'll never run out of cash.
Wow. Interesting way to look at it. I am stoked to announce that Solon Clothing is now a sponsor of the show. I've known Ryan and Jeremy for 20 plus years. Amazing human beings, huge supporters of the tattoo community. If you're a tattoo artist and you want to do a t-shirt design with Solon, you can send that over to design@solonclothing.com, and they would love to see what you've got. Again, thank you, Solon, for your support. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Jeremy. And now back to the show. The fact that you interviewed this many people, and since then, I'm sure you've been around many, many more. What do you think the most common denominator you found in a human being that causes them to be fulfilled, successful, wealthy, as you might put it, in life, wealthy in life?
Yeah, stickability. It's the power to persevere. First there's a dream, then there's a challenge, and then comes victory. Most people quit in the challenging times. But it's the people that persevere and go that extra 3 feet, like 3 feet from gold. They're the ones that we tell the stories about. So 3 feet from gold, did you know the story from Think and Grow Rich?
I read that book when I was a young man, and I probably could not dig it up right now.
All right.
You refresh me.
Well, the first chapter is a guy named R.U. Darby, and he has gold fever but knows nothing about gold. He goes out west, starts digging, and finds a couple nuggets. He tells his family friends they chip in money to buy equipment to pull it out by the ore cart. The first cart came out of the ground, and it was filled with gold. Whoa, he's rich, right? But then the gold ran out. He kept digging, no more gold. Defeated, he walks out of the mine and says, I quit, and sees a junk man walking by. Says, hey, buddy, give me $200. I'll sell you the mine, the deed, equipment. I ran out of gold. I'm going back home to something I know. The junk man surveying the equipment, it was worth 10 grand because the family chipped in money, gave him $200 on the spot, said, you got yourself a deal. Darby goes home a defeated quitter, but the junk man goes to an engineer, says, what happened? He goes, this guy hit gold and ran out. And the engineer laughed. He said, that's mining 101. Everyone knows that gold runs in a straight line. It's called the gold vein. What Darby did is he came in one side, hit gold, and popped back into dirt. He says, go back to where they discovered treasure. Go 90 degrees, 3 feet the opposite way. You'll tap back into the vein. Not only did the junk man pull millions upon millions of dollars out, but it still fills Fort Knox today.
Wow.
But the moral is, how many times have we or someone we know quit one class short from a degree or sales or marriage or marketing? It's easy to quit, but it's the people that go that extra 3 feet. They're the ones that we tell the stories about today.
I'm glad you said that. And I don't remember where I read this, or maybe it was a podcast, but it was a similar deal. Somebody went around and interviewed a bunch. Maybe it was your book. I don't even know now that I'm saying this out loud, but they were trying to figure that out. What is the most common denominator with these types of folks? And it was, I thought they called it like the see it through factor or something. It's the people that just got up every day and kept doing it, regardless of the results of the previous day. It wasn't the better looking person, the taller person, the one who had the more connections, all the higher IQ. It was none of those things.
Right.
You just confirmed.
Well, it came down, that was the book we did. It's called Stickability, the power to persevere. And it was interesting. So when we talked to these people, all their stories had the common theme. Again, there's a dream, then there's a challenge, then comes victory. But like one of my favorite ones from Stickability was this guy named Marty Cooper. He invented the cell phone. I saw him on 60 Minutes. 3 days later, I'm in his office, right here in San Diego, by the way. And I said, what does stickability mean to you? And he said, stickability has to be parallel with flexibility. He says, if you're not willing to adapt and adjust, you'll get stuck. And he told this story about a spider monkey. He said, in the rainforest, you can't catch it, spear it, harpoon it. It's too wiry. It's too smart. He goes, but one hunter named San Juan figured it out. Took a heavy log, drilled a tiny hole, dropped a peanut inside, left at the base of the jungle. The monkey would smell the nut, come down, reach his hand in, grab a holding the nut, and his fist becomes so big he can't pull it back out and become anchored to the log.
Crazy.
All he's got to do is let go, but he holds on with dear life.
Right.
The hunter comes by an hour later and captures this elusive spider monkey. Well, the moral is, are we holding on to our own nut in life? But it could be that job or fear or guilt or remorse. And what we're holding on with dear life, like the monkey was holding on with the nut, thinking that it's saving it, just like we're thinking this is saving us, could also be the thing that's leading to our own demise. Sometimes we have to have the courage and fortitude to adapt and adjust so we can live to fight another day.
Man, I'm not going to get into it right now, but that is exactly the sentence I needed to hear. I have a personal thing going on in my business life that I have something that I value. I think my value towards it is just related to the suffering that went through to achieve it and have it. But I'm really starting to think it's not serving me anymore. And I've been talking to my wife recently, like, let's let go of that. And with the resources from that, reinvent. And by the way, everybody, Guru Tattoo is not going anywhere. I'm talking about something else. But yeah, and I just was talking to my film guy over here, Eric, about this. Like, I might need to just let go and pivot.
Okay, here's a great one. If you have to wonder if something's right or wrong, chances are it's wrong.
The fact that I'm even talking about it and thinking
You
about it
already
so
know
much.
your answer. It's just a matter of doing.
Yeah.
And what happens, again, we hold on with this stuff because sometimes it did serve us at that time. But sometimes we have to let go and adapt so we can adapt and adjust because what got us here isn't going to get us to where we want to be. And sometimes we have to let go of that. It's kind of like a backpack that's old and rotted and duct taped together. Sometimes we have to let that go, even though it has memories, so we can get a new one to get us to the top of the mountain.
Right, because that backpack's not going to get you to the top of Everest. You need a different backpack. I love that analogy. That's good advice, man. See, already.
We'll be here all week. Thank you very much. Psychology, Greg Reid.
Okay. You're obviously your energy, I can just feel it coming across the table. You've probably always been this way. It's your nature.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I got in trouble as a kid.
Probably.
And now I get paid as an adult. Go figure.
I kind of have a similar story. But, and I think for a lot of people, motivation's a big one. I mean, I don't know I do know. Most people aren't born with this particular vibe that you've got, so, maybe some advice around that. Like, what do you use? I mean, you're an upbeat dude, but you've been beaten down. You've woke up feeling like you didn't want to get out of bed that day because of whatever happened the day before. What are some advice you give in that realm? Like, how do you shake that off and just keep moving?
Well, I'm a unique person. And I'm not a psychologist, so I can't tell people what to do. I will say this for myself. I happen to be a sober guy, 35 years. I don't drink, smoke, use drugs. I live a very clean life. And by doing that, I think has served me well. So therefore, that's how I choose to live my life. And I also have an always good mentality. And what does that mean? One time I was going through a cashier here in San Diego, getting groceries. And I noticed people in front of me, the cashier kept asking them how they're doing. And they kept saying fair, fine, fair to middle. And someone ahead of me said a double negative, not bad. I said, well, she's getting to me. I got to come up with a double positive. She gets to me, how you doing? I said, always good. And she looked up and she said, how can someone always be good? And I said, well, Abraham Lincoln said it best. People are as happy as they make up their minds to be. So for myself, it's a matter of choice. So everything that happens to me, good, bad, indifferent, I have that always good mentality. My head could be in the toilet throwing up. Someone asks me how I'm doing. I promise I'm going to say, always good, because I'm going to look at the other side, what's coming next, and not where I'm at right now.
It's good advice. It's true. I use a similar technique when I'm feeling down and defeated. Is I'll just go. I'm kind of Buddhist by nature, but I'll use things like coming into the present moment and just asking myself a simple question: what is actually wrong right now? I mean, really. I mean, do you have food? Do you have water? Do you have And the answer is always the answer is I'm fine. So what is going on inside you that tells you you're not fine? What justification do you have to be depressed today? Whatever happened yesterday's over. The sun is shining. You got all these beautiful things in your life, all these opportunities. So just coming into the moment and acknowledging that has been a big one for me.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's a great mindset. And it's very interesting. I've always realized that we have 10 things in every single person's life that goes on. 8 of them, rocking. 1 of them, iffy, and 1's crap. But we focus on the crap thing. And we don't give ourselves enough credit for the good things. Hey, good job paying the rent this month, right? Hey, good job staying healthy. Hey, good job avoiding this situation. So I've come to the mentality where I start looking at those 8 amazing things and actually start celebrating them. And by doing so, I think I have more gratitude for the things that come my direction.
It's true. Another thing on a social level, it's incredible to me or interesting to me how much attention typical average society will give you when you're complaining. Like everyone is all ears when the complaints are happening, and to talk about your success or your joy seems to be a little less interesting to most people. So I think it's there's something tied into that. Like, why do we like hearing the negative stuff so much as a whole, as a culture.
Well, it's so funny because I've been pitching TV shows up to Hollywood right now. Same thing. All these amazing things go, well, yeah, we don't want it. They go, there's only room for 1.5 positive shows on TV.
Right.
You can have one Ellen and Wendy Williams. That's it. You get 1.5 and that's all they want. But in general, the Kardashians and the Jersey Shore and these things are more interesting to people. I find it fascinating as well. But I also understand that we can take control of this. So I started my own mastermind groups. I got tired of going to the family barbecues and telling my uncle my dreams and goals and them poo-pooing on them.
Right.
And so I started surrounding myself with positive, like-minded people where we get together and we share what's going on in a completely different attitude. Understand this. Successful people seek counsel and failures listen to opinion. I'm going to say it again. Successful people seek counsel, failures listen to opinion. Opinion is based on ignorance, lack of knowledge, or inexperience, again, like your family, friends who've never done what you want to do. Counsel is based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. People pave the way. If I go to family friends and say I'm going to be a best-selling author, they're going to try to talk me out of it to protect me because I'm dyslexic and they've never written a best-selling book. If I go to Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, he's going to say, Greg, here's what you need to know and give me counsel based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. If we would spend our activity only seeking counsel and ignore opinion, that's the day, that's the moment our lives will change.
My dad put it a different way, a real simple way, actually. He's like, look, son, if you want something or want to become something, talk to the people that have or are that.
Correct.
You know, it's like asking marital advice from the divorce guy. You know, like, who gives a shit what this guy has to say? He failed at that or whatever. Yeah, that's a good one.
Surround yourself with people that are getting the results that you want for yourself. And then I'm going to add a word, today. Who's getting the results you want for it? Because if I wanted to get into selling books, as an example, it's completely different energy in business today than it was just even 10 years ago, which is different than 20 years ago.
Right.
So who's getting the results that you want for yourself today? So for example, if I wanted to be an artist, I don't know any artists, but if I wanted to be a successful artist, I wouldn't go to a bunch of other starving artists. That's just pooled starvation. I'd sit outside one of the galleries and see whose art's being pulled off the wall and ask that person what they did.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people who are doing what you want today.
Good advice. Very good advice. Advice that I've seen work in my own life for sure. You know, I got to dig into this. The personal development genre is something I've been addicted to my whole life. I was fortunate enough as a young man, not even knowing, my father went to a thing called Psi seminars, people synergistically involved. I think they are not so much around after COVID, I've heard for some reason. Whatever, they were around, for 20, 30 years. And he put me through this, and this was early. This is 36 years ago. I'm a sixth grader taking this type of course. They're teaching these types of, ways of being and ways of being successful. And I don't know, some of it, but one of them I took with me was a visualization. So at night I was taught to always fall asleep, seeing what I wanted to be in a year, 5 years, and really see it in your mind's eye in detail. See the knob on the door handle to the house you're going to live in, smell the leather in the car. And then also they emphasize, feel the emotion that comes from that, like feel the joy. So I just did it. It was like a really nice way just to fall asleep at night. It was just my way to kind of, when you can't sleep, you just do that. And then here we are 30 something years later. And literally I stand in the middle of those visualizations. So this goes back to this whole word that's thrown around, manifestation, and I want you to speak on that because I have some thoughts about that because I think a lot of people hear that word and it's almost like they're hearing like it's magic or something, like there's some magic happening. I don't think it's magic. And I think you're going to have a lot to say about that. There's real scientific reasons that it occurs that way, but talk about manifestation.
Okay. So Bob Proctor and I wrote a book together. It's called Think and Grow Rich, Thoughts Are Things. And when we went on the journey, we thought magically law of attraction is you think it and it magically appears. Well, then quickly we realized that it's the action in the law of attraction that makes our dreams a reality. Think it, feel it, but ultimately you got to do it because the universe rewards momentum and most people miss that key element. The difference is that the momentum is that you see it, you visualized it, but then eventually, consciously or subconsciously, you took action towards that to be standing in the middle of it. Most people are afraid to act. They just want to be thin, rich, and happy and have it magically happen to them rather than take the necessary actions. Also understand this, we are exactly where we choose to be. Minus some medical ailment that we have no control over, in general, our lives are where we choose to be. There's a quote that says, I can tell everything I need to know about you by the company you keep. don't think that's true. I can tell everything I need to know about you by the circumstance in which you put yourself in. Because if you sit there and say, I want a Lamborghini, but don't have a Lamborghini, it means that you are not willing to do the necessary actions and steps to have that. So I can tell everything I need to know about somebody by exactly where they're at.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I mean, my experience with examining this idea of manifestation, for me comes back to a little bit of quantum physics and stuff like that. And I started watching a lot of videos about how molecules vibrate with a certain frequency, and then if you put them in a petri dish or wherever they put them under a microscope, other molecules with a similar frequency, they move like there's a magnetic attraction. They'll eventually like harmonize together like
Correct.
music. And we're made of molecules, right?
Correct.
So then my question is for myself is always, what am I vibrating like? Like what? And it's a nuanced thing. You can have a little bit of anger. You can have a lot of joy. It's all mixes together to make your unique signature. But whatever that unique,
But you can adjust that at any time. So we'll go back to this. If you go back in some of the greatest music songs ever were done at the 432 frequency, because if you go back in all Bob Marley songs, for example, Woman No Cry type of a thing, frequency. And you go back to look at some of the greatest ones, when those songs come on, immediately you change, your vibration changes because it was done at that. The same thing as some of those rocking, pounding music or the sad love song. They all have certain frequencies that put you in a state. So you can actually change your frequency at any time by the vibration which you put yourself around. That's the part that's so cool. We're in direct control of it. Now, I'm going to go a little deep on this one.
I like that. Let's go deep.
So there's a thing called tapping the source. Okay, tapping the source means that everything is a vibration frequency. And what we do is certain people can tap into that source at any time. Do we agree right now, for the sake of argument, that there is country music, rap music, and classical music in the air? Yes or no?
Yes.
And if we took a radio frequency dial and tuned it into an exact frequency, we could pull it down from the ethers, correct?
Yes.
But it would have to be an exact number. So we're in San Diego. So if we wanted Jack FM 100.7, 100.1 wouldn't work. It has to be exact. Well, certain people, have you ever met someone who's not as smart as you, have more success, or someone not as good looking, have a better looking spouse? The difference is they tapped a source of their frequency. And the way in which we do it is the questions in which we ask. Everything is literal. There's non-emotional attachment to it. So if I Googled right now, men's shoes size 10, well, it's going to give me 1 billion. But if I said size 10 men's shoes, color red within 900 feet of my vicinity, it'll give me that number.
Right.
Well, this is what certain people do. Most people go around life and they ask this question: God, why does this crap always happen to me? Hold on 1 second. This is why, you dummy. It gives you that answer. When everything's going good, when will this go to hell in a handbag? Tuesday at 4. But certain people, like myself and my friends, we say, how can it get even better than this? What's the solution and the challenge that I'm not seeing right now? Who's on my phone that I could wheel to right now who has a win-win relationship that we could build an alliance? And what do you know? Magically, those things start appearing. So it's the questions in which we ask the universe is also the response and the answer that we'll get in response.
I like that. That's true. That's very true. Yeah, and I think it demystifies the idea of manifestation, right? I mean, that whole thing, I think,
It's not woo-woo.
Right, that's my point.
It's scientific.
Exactly. That was my point. Exactly. And I think that needs to be said, because I think a lot of people look at it that way and they're like, well, magic or whatever. It's not magic, man. That shit. I didn't make the universe, but it seems to operate this way for whatever reason. I just want to abide by the rules.
Have you ever walked into a place, a bar, a house, a thing, and as soon as you open the door, you just go, weird energy, right? Well, that's the energy that's put in there. It's the same thing. You ever walk in a place and just bang in, and all of a sudden you go, this is amazing? Same thing. We can create our energy by surrounding ourselves with the energy in which we seek. Rumi had a quote, a philosopher: whatever you seek is also seeking you in return.
I wrote that down. I wanted to explore that one. Yeah, because I haven't figured this one out yet, but I feel like so many of the things that have occurred in my life, the successes that have occurred in my life, there's a feeling in me that they were already there and I just allowed them to show up. Does that make sense? Is that what that quote refers to a little bit?
It is. It's when the student's ready, a teacher appears. How many times have you thought of your friend that you haven't talked to in high school and they call you all of a sudden? Right? It's not, it's just, it's the energy that's put out there. It's just all frequency. How many times have you had $1 million idea in the shower and by the time you brush your teeth, it's down the drain to see it on a billboard 10 years later? You both had the same idea at the same time. It was both downloaded, but one person acted. Again, it's the action, the law of attraction. The story goes, and I don't know if it's true because he's not around to tell me, but Michael Jackson, when he wrote Thriller, he sat down and said that he wrote every word, every syllable from beginning to end for 3 days and didn't sleep. And when asked why, he says, well, I didn't want Prince to tap in first.
I mean, as an artist, I've had that weird thing happen to me. I've had some pretty, what I think are some cutting at my edge of art, and I think about them, take action right away. I'm just, man, what soon? Next month, I'm going to really execute this idea. And then all of a sudden I open Instagram and someone's doing it in Russia. And I'm like, huh, okay. Because it was already out there in the ether, and this dude reached up and grabbed it before I grabbed it. Right. You know, that idea.
And a lot of that subconscious stuff too is we could have been going through Instagram in the middle of the night and saw it subconsciously real quick in the quickest of a thing.
You think it's your idea.
Exactly. And planted the seed. There are no new thoughts. All it is regurgitated thoughts and concept told in a different way. Again, you can hear the old think and grow rich. If you think you can or you think you can, you're right, and tell it in a different version, which is original to you. And it's brand new to the person that's never heard it before.
Yeah, that's a deep one right there. Now you're getting into the idea of novelty and creativity. And yeah, I agree with you. I used to believe that there was such a thing as brand new novel. I still struggle. I mean, there are moments in history where it seems some humans have come up with something that is brand new, like, I don't know, nuclear fusion or, things like that. So maybe it does occasionally occur where a human taps into the source and brings down something completely new.
Okay, so let's go back to even take that topic. It's already been there. Just one person actually acknowledged it. So they didn't create it. It's already there. So for example, the reason why many believe that we never went back to the moon is because of something called H3, helium-3, which is nuclear fission, cold fission. And the Chinese government actually just brought back a cup load. And if you notice, all of a sudden you see on the internet how they are creating the new sun because they have so much energy that was already there that they brought back. That can change everything. So again, was that invented, or was that just something that was capsulized and shared with the world?
Right. Everything was already there. Just a matter of who finds it first, and
Correct.
That becomes the newest novel idea. I didn't hear that about the Chinese government.
Look up H3. It'll scare the living heck out of you. In a positive way too, it could end all energy crisis. So it's really, really interesting.
Really?
Yeah. All the astronauts I've ever spoken to, which is a lot of them, they always said the same thing. We never went back because of H3.
I hope my wife's father's listening right now. We had this argument by the pool recently. I was just playing with him. I was like, "Oh, we never went back to the moon." No. He was vehemently against that proposal. So I'll have to look into that one later.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And you're going to text me and go, "Holy smokes, I had no idea." Yeah, look for artificial sun for China right now. And coincidentally, it was a month or two after they returned with H3, all these things started magically appearing.
Yeah, and this kind of brings me to another thing I wanted to approach with you, which is, the world is changing. I mean, I think we would agree it is changing at a rate that we can't even comprehend. It's very difficult to predict what the world will look like in 10 years. With AI coming on board, H3 coming on board potentially, I go down a list of things that are happening simultaneously that, 100 years ago, you could pretty much predict 10 years from now. You could almost know what job you were going to do because your dad did it. It was all handed down. Now things are just rapidly evolving. So it's difficult to know it's more difficult to plan your future to some degree because you're like, I don't even know economically what's happening in 10 years, So what degree should I get? Anyway, all that in big ball. What would be some advice for these young people coming up? The 19-year-olds, the 18-year-olds are getting out of high school and they're trying to figure out what to do with their lives with such a dynamically shifting world stage. You got any thoughts on that? I mean, I'm mystified by this. This AI stuff has got me whirling, dude.
Yeah.
They're talking about a 30% reduction in labor in the next year. Are you on board with that idea? I kind of am. I've done a little reading on it. It seems like it
I
could
am
be possible.
so far advanced on all these topics. So yes, that's
I'm
to
glad
the
I
highest.
got you here because I'm dying to talk to somebody who's done some deep diving on this.
Yeah. Well, actually, one of the biggest things, I'll pull one thread. I'll make it super simple. So one of the person that came to one of our events, his name's Walter O'Brien. The TV show Scorpion on ABC for 4 seasons was about his life. Smartest guy alive, 192 IQ. And one day we're on stage together and he says, let me pull a little thread. He goes, talk about AI, talk about the future. He goes, let's just talk about self-driving cars. He goes, that right there will be the thread that begins pulling everything. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, think about it. He goes, if they had self-driving cars, automatically car washes and gas stations would go out of business. Oh yeah, he goes, but let's pull that thing. He goes, all the taxi drivers and the Uber drivers go out of business. He goes, yeah, he goes, well, that's labor force. He goes, well, think about this. He goes, in real estate, he goes, if you flew over any city, no matter what, 50% of all the buildings are parking. He goes, now all of a sudden you don't need that anymore. He goes, that changes the value of your real estate in half because all of a sudden the supply and demand constantly changes. He goes, let's start peeling this onion, start pulling this little thread. And it was very interesting to see how just one little topic had so much impact of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs. And it was very, very interesting. But then we start talking about AI and things of this nature. They're also wonderful tools. So for example, like I said, I'm writing my last book. Why? Because the computers will write them in the future.
Right.
And so now
I was going to get to that. I'm glad you said it.
Well, I'm doing my book right now and I'm saying in the voice of Greg S. Reid, tell me an original quote about perseverance. And it's coming up with stuff better than I could come up with. And I've been testing it. Wow. So I would post on Instagram an original Greg Reid quote and then one that was made by AI as Greg Reid. And I'd get more feedback from the fake one.
Whoa.
Interesting, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, can I tee into that?
Oh, yeah.
I'm an artist. I'm a visual artist. I'm a tattoo artist. I'm a painter. I am currently working on a piece of art. I made a t-shirt design for this big clothing company up in Los Angeles called Sullen Clothing. They're one of our sponsors. Shout out to Jeremy and Ryan over at Sullen. And I make this t-shirt design, very simple graphic design of a hawk with these skulls and filigree. It's really cool. I was stoked on it. Then I found my friend showed me this AI app, and I've used Midjourney too, and I'll get to that. But it's an AI app that you just send it a sketch. So I sent it the rough sketch of the t-shirt design. It pumps out 15 finished pieces of art based on the sketch. In those 15, now a lot of them they were clunky and ugly, and I'm like aesthetically not appealing. But there was this one that did something that was novel. And when I say novel, meaning novel to me, I hadn't thought about taking a sketch and bringing it to and expressing it in that way. So I then took a screenshot of that. I pulled it into my Procreate program, and I am currently on my 40th hour of manipulating that piece of art. So it was my sketch to AI. Now I'm manipulating what the AI made, and I'm going to release it as a limited edition print very soon. On purpose. Some of my peers have been like, you don't want to tell people you did that. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I think I do. I mean, I'm just experimenting with the future. This is what people are going to be doing. I want to at least do it. Maybe I'll never do it again. Maybe I'll go back to doing analog paintings like the ones you saw up front. But I at least want to, and that is, it's shooken me up a little. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm having fun. So that's why I keep doing it, because I like to do things that are fun. But I look at that and I'm like you said, the AI is going to write your book.
Yeah.
The AI is probably going to do that painting soon.
Correct.
I mean, luckily, analog tattooing still exists. I think it'll be around a little bit longer, but I'm assuming at some point a robot will do that too. I mean, at this point at least, it takes a human to grab a human and to move the needles and go around the body and put it in there. But that's just the technician part of my job. The thing that got me to where I am in my career was my originality creatively.
And remember this, you are an expert and the people you hang around with are experts. But there's a lot of people in that same industry who are not experts. And you see on Instagram with people's bodies that have been manipulated by not professional tattoo people that I guarantee they would rather have had a robot do that one picture of their dog or whatever that didn't come out quite as the way that they expected. They had to have it removed and redone and things of this nature. So there's going to be pros and cons to everything. So for example, at my live events, I asked AI to do my introductions for people coming on stage in the voice of me in a positive attitude, do an introduction for XYZ coming on stage. Now I'm finding, just like you, part of it was amazing. Part of it was a little off and part of it used someone else's with the same name bio. So I still had to go back and play with it. So we're still on the cutting edge of what's coming next. But in another 5 years, it'll be indistinguishable. I don't think you'll be able to tell.
I'm with you on that. And in the meantime, some of the leading creatives will be curators of AI, right? So they're
Yes.
using the generators and then they're taking the good and getting rid of the bad and piecing it. But still, I mean, I have a friend who's a high-level executive at Adobe, and he said all his designers are freaking out because, you know, what they needed a team of, say, 25 guys to make a video game. He's like, we can do that same video game now with two. And those two dudes are just curating what the AI produces, changing a few things. Boom, there's your video game.
That's right.
Oh, man. And, you know, back, I guess let's circle back then, because my original question was,
Kids.
yeah, talking about I don't want to say scared. I'm just a little freaked out. Like
See, you and I have got a different attitude. I've got an 11-year-old son. I'm fired up for the guy. It's completely different. So, for example, the school just asked him or the class to write an original essay to the class of why they should get a class pet. So he went in and had AI create him a reason why, written it as an 11-year-old kid, why we should have a class pet. Then they took it through another AI thing that made it sound like a child wrote it. And then another one to make sure it wasn't plagiarized and turned it in and they got a pet. And he goes, but they still learn to use those tools.
right.
So my kid plays a lot of video games, like, you know, the modern age. But I grew up with BB guns and footballs and stuff like that. And I was getting frustrated. And someone came up to me and I said, I want my kid to play more of this stuff. And I said, Greg, that's their equipment. Your equipment was just analog. This is what their equipment is. But if you can let them go turn loose on this stuff, imagine what they'll create with this in the future. Imagine if Albert Einstein was alive today and had access to all this information.
And there is somebody out there who's equally as smart as him today.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the future could be amazing.
So and I do go here, Greg, but I think what you're saying is if we allow these technologies to propagate and we manage them correctly, we will create a new world where these jobs that are going away won't be necessary.
Correct.
So we're getting more into this idea of, some call it universal income. I mean, what do you do with billions of people that don't need to go to work anymore? I mean, that's kind of where it gets a little like, what do you do there? And I understand there's going to be many hurdles to overcome.
But again, when we had COVID, the same thing. There's all these high rises with all these businesses and cubicles, and they went away. Did it change anything? I'm asking. Did it change it?
Not yet.
But did it change? No, it didn't. And it's been years. So the realities are it's just an adjustment. It's a pivot. And I think that's what's going to happen. And that's what's going to come because more people find other opportunities. Look, there's always going to be someone that, still needs to do certain technical jobs no matter what. But again, I'm going to say this. If I had hypothetically a worst case scenario, a melanoma or something like that, would I rather have a doctor perform the surgery or a nano robot? And I'd vote for the nano robot.
Yeah. Or brain surgery for that matter.
All day long.
Yeah.
So at the end of the
Its
day,
hand doesn't shake.
I didn't, my wife didn't, the robot's wife didn't leave it, didn't have problems, did not get a raise, doesn't have a HIPAA lawsuit, whatever, right? So at the end of the day, I think that progress is going to get better. That's just my thought.
I agree that all of that. I just wonder what happens to all these people when they don't need to work anymore. I'm just trying to visualize what the world looks like in 10 years. I'm trying to formulate in my own mind what that looks like. And I don't have it. I don't think anyone does, but I work on it daily. I'm always trying to chew on that. Like, what would it, and I'm thinking positive things like you are, I do think this technology could solve health problems, water crisis, food shortages. I mean, we have plenty of problems that need to be resolved so that more people can live in peace and happiness. And then there's, the darker side where it's like, well, you get a Chinese government that's got AI robots. It teaches it how to dominate and control and better, faster, that it can.
But that's just the wives' tales we were told as kids. The same thing how Russia was, going to send a bomb and we had to hide underneath their desk in school and things of this. They're fear propaganda things of this nature. And your whole lifetime, how old are you now?
51.
Has China ever invaded you?
No.
Has Russia ever invaded you?
No.
It's all, exactly.
Yeah, I get
so
that.
at the end of the day, we just got to look at what we're told. Like you told me outside, you showed me a picture that you painted, that we were instilled with all this stuff that was passed down from generation that were just wives' tales rather than true reality. And I think the future, if we looked at it from not a fear base, but as a possibility base, it's amazing. The fear stuff is scary, by the way. You and I could go down a whole nother rabbit hole on that one because I'm experiencing some of that stuff myself. On the same note, the possibilities are pretty cool. I will tell one quick story. This is a good one about my kid because it was great. I was doing a podcast like this a year ago, and the woman asked me a question. She said, do you give your son money to do things that he doesn't like to do around the house, like make his bed, take out trash? I said, absolutely. Like, I'm going to teach my son the power and respect of money to earn. And she goes, stop. You just ruined your child forever. I expected more from you. I said, well, teach me. Student's mindset. What am I missing? And she goes, think about it. You're training your child from the earliest of memory. The only way to get paid money is to do something they don't like.
Yeah.
So I sat him down with the same mindset and said, son, you know what? I got millions of followers on Instagram. You make these cool videos and TikToks and memes. From now on, why don't you make those for me? You'll earn your allowance doing what you excel at. And how about you make your bed and we'll call that contribution for living this lifestyle.
Right.
We changed that paradigm. So now when he comes to me and says, hey, the new Jordans are out, how many TikToks do I need to make you? But what's happening is he's working his strengths and he's going now and teaching other kids to do the same. And that's why together they did this AI stuff where they created like even a new NFT for a fundraiser for school and raise enough money for the entire school to go on a class project. They're using new technologies in a positive way to get positive results.
I like that. I'm changing that today. When I have I've got an 18-year-old who's going to college next month, but I got a 12-year-old who is on that damn phone a lot and likes to build things on Roblox and likes to make TikTok videos. And I own business. I need time. I can't get enough of that. Thank you for that.
Okay,
advice.
let's talk about that. When the next year, you're going to see a big change. They're going to be the halving at, this is not financial advice. Next year will be the next halving for Bitcoin. You're going to see all crypto go through the friggin' roof more than likely.
I'm glad I didn't sell any yet.
Yeah, next year is going to be a big year for us, I think. But more importantly, you're going to see Web3 really start making a rise. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that's going to be the virtual reality. It's going to be a lot of the, the Decentraland and things of this nature. And your kid will have an opportunity to be a contractor in these things for people to go build their properties and build their land. So I think if it was me and it was the father of your kid, I would tell them, holy smokes, there is a way to get paid money to do what you're already going to do. Mm-hmm. And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, we're slowly teasing out what the future might look like. That's one aspect of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or just capitalize on it. Again, here's a beautiful thing. Would you do tattoos on your friends and stuff even if you didn't get paid?
Yeah.
Exactly. So you found a way to get paid money to do what you're already going to do. Your son is already building on Roblox. Well, guess what? In Sandbox and Decentraland, where they're building properties, they need architects, and there are none. So your son has an opportunity to be a gadillionaire because when this breaks out again, which it will in Web3, they can come in there and be that person who builds it.
What makes you say next year's the year?
Just writing on the wall. Look, we've seen this movie before, right? You have the ups and the downs and the dips and the things of this nature. Every time so far, I can only follow history, that there's been a halving in Bitcoin, we've seen an increase. It's 100%.
Right.
It's not 99. It's 100% so far. Mm-hmm. And next year is the next halving. So by odds and statistics, and also by, I don't know if you followed this or not, but the courts just ruled in XRP Ripple's favor.
I remember this.
Just last week, saying it's not an actual commodity, so it's a security, so it changed the whole game. Of
that little court case, that's been going on for a while.
Well, I knew something was up on that when I started getting involved with it. When Rios, the woman who actually signed the dollar bills as a treasurer, she came on board with Ripple. A couple of years, I went, that's a good sign. And then all of Obama's financial security went on board of directors. I went, okay, we got to keep our eye on this. And then when the SEC sued them, it looked like they were doing that to create a foundation so that they can start building some, not just technology, but they could build some type of rules and regulations around it. And I think that's what's coming next, which we do need because you see the wild, wild west. It's kind of an S show out there right now.
Yeah.
And so we do need some structure.
I agree with that. Yeah, there's been a lot of predators in that realm. Well, that's good. I got a little bit in that area, and I'm just holding for that day.
Hodl. Well, exactly. And if you look at it, again, not financial advice. When my kid was 7, he came to me, and his grandparents gave him a bunch of money, like $7,000 at the time. And I said, what do you want to do with this? I go, let's put it in the bank. He goes, buy me a Bitcoin. I go, what the heck's a Bitcoin? So I opened up a thing, bought him a Bitcoin. So the kid, now it's worth $31,000. But the whole point is that that's what got me into it. And so most people go, oh, the kids and the kids. I go, I just watch what these kids are doing and follow suit, even though I'm 60, because they're the ones who are going to the future.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I think you're right. The future's bright and interesting. And as a lover of weird and a lover of science fiction, I feel like this is the best time you could possibly be born. Because if I, knock on wood, can make it another 30 years, we're going to watch Star Wars happen right in front of our faces.
Exactly. And you're seeing it right now. That's what's so crazy. People are living longer than any time in history. I saw a commercial the other day. I was watching golf, boring little thing. And they had a commercial saying, what if you outlive your insurance? And I went, huh? And the whole thing was, what these people are living to be over 100 years old now. And so will you have enough money to live past 100? I went, that's when you know things are changing, right?
Yeah, I've seen some studies. My wife owns a health spa, as I told you, a med spa / health center up in Carlsbad. And she does a lot of stuff in the realm of longevity. They do the NAD drips and the exosome drips and all the different things that are, these are the beginnings of modalities that are probably going to get us living past 100. But some of the more solid evidence indicates 150 is within range for guys in our era.
Correct. And it was interesting that
that's great.
NMN and the NAD and all these different things, the concept is to extend our telomeres, right? Which is basically the end of our, anyway. So I won't get too deep into this stuff, but it's really interesting. The people I'm hanging out with are really focusing on longevity, but not just living longer, but living a longer, healthier lifestyle.
Right.
Look, again, I'm 60 years old. I skateboard every single day. I'm doing better than I ever have. As soon as we're done with this, I'm going to a med spa to get rid of these little dark spots because I go, hey, if there's even a chance this could turn bad, why not deal with it ahead of time? Yeah. But guess what? They're not scraping with their human hands. They're using what? Technology and lasers to do it.
Yeah. 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 Well, you should do that. I had melanoma twice on my back many years ago. Got it removed. But yeah, that's serious stuff. Let me ask you this. Everyone says life's busy. But I mean, I don't want to say that so casually. I think life's busier than ever. And one of the reasons it's so busy is the phones came around, right? I mean, gosh, 20 years ago, dude, you came home, you pushed play on your answering machine. That's right. Maybe 6 people you had to maybe think about getting back to.
If you're lucky.
And then the email showed up, and that was a little bit much. It's like, oh, now I got to do my email. Now we got 12 people I got to deal with. Then the phone showed up, and people started texting me. I'm like, now I've got 30, 40 people. Then my Twitter account, my Instagram account. At this point in my small bubble, which is much smaller than yours, in one day, I probably should be getting back in some way to over 100 people. Yours is probably 500 people. Like the management of this, I like to ask successful people their take on that, how they manage that, because it can be very overwhelming.
Immediately. That's my answer.
Just do what you can on the spot.
Immediately. Yeah. Someone texts me, I text back. If something I don't have, if you open up my phone, someone said a great line to me, a multi-billionaire. He says, how you run your phone is how you run your life.
If you procrastinate, then you're procrastinating.
Well, exactly. He goes, if you didn't open up your phone, he goes, right now you show it. And if you have 2,000 unopened emails and your phone hasn't been updated with the latest thing and the stuff, he goes, I won't do business with you.
He's not lying. I actually texted Greg a couple days ago about getting on a phone call at 1, and I think 10 minutes later, my phone was ringing. By the way, I was getting my hair cut. I apologize. I didn't answer.
You're just showing off that he's got hair, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Burn. Good advice. Yeah. I mean, yeah, not doing, and I'm guilty. I've had many a day where I looked at my DMs, it's 8 p.m., and I'm just like, if I open that one thing, it could lead to 5 things I've got to do. And maybe there is a time it's 8 p.m. and I'm turning off for the night. You got to categorize your work. I'm sure you do that. Like these are the times where I do work. This is when I do email. And when I'm not doing email, I'm not doing email.
Well, I think that's what's changed is that I don't think there is any times in general. I'm just talking about in people in general, right? We're 24/7 open for business. And that's what's changed. But also there's more opportunities are coming.
True.
And, I'm not going to sit back and wait for an opportunity when someone's knocking at the door to try to do something with me. Mm-hmm. Someone wants to do an interview and have a podcast and hang out for a little bit. Why wouldn't I jump on that right away? What a great opportunity. So that's how I look at it.
You're a successful guy. The fact you showed up here shows that you live that way. You say yes to life, generally. And that sort of leads me into that realm of like, you're obviously got I don't know this, but I'm assuming you have enough money to you could retire. You could not work so much. Why continue all this? Why be so involved with all these projects? It just brings you joy, I'm assuming. Is that the main?
And it's always what's next. I'm a student's mind. That's it. I'm always learning. And so I always say, what have I not done? And I do it. When I was a kid, I did a bucket list of 80 impossible, just not going to happen items of my bucket list. And when I was 50, I crossed them all off in my last one. And it was really interesting because that's what I live for. I like the goals. I'm a goals guy. So having these goals and expectations gives me a thrill, like making a movie or doing a show or doing this thing. If I haven't done it before, that's what I want to do first.
Well, and science would probably tell you that's going to keep you healthy too.
Exactly. I mean, I couldn't even imagine not doing all these fun things. I mean, what a pleasure. I know we're going to talk about Wishman, and I'll tell you a little quick story about that. As I was at my event, Secret Knock, and there's a gentleman named Frank Shankowitz on stage, and he started a nonprofit called Make-A-Wish Foundation. It grants wishes to terminally ill kids. And I said, Frank, I got to know, what was your wish? And he looked at me like I had two heads. He goes, what are you talking about? I go, well, you're the founder of Make-A-Wish. What was your wish? And he goes, no one asked me. I said, well, I want to be the guy that grants the wish of the founder of Make-A-Wish. Anything you want. I go, do you want a Lamborghini? I know a guy. He says, no, I just want my story to be told so my grandkids will know I did something. So he signed over his life rights. And I said, Frank, I'm going to make it into a major film. Just know I've never made a film. And he trusted me. And it took 6 years of trials and tribulations. But when it came out, we made the ballot for the Oscars. We've won awards around the world, and it's still trending around right now. With the moral being is that everyone can be a hero. You do not need to be a billionaire or a millionaire or a celebrity to give a pair of socks to a homeless guy. Everyone can stop a bully from fighting. And everyone can have one act of kindness to have a ripple effect to impact the lives of others around them.
Love that. And that kind of leads me to another thing I wanted to bring up, which is, I call it my North Star. When I first was saying the complexity of life and how interactive it is right now, it can be a bit overwhelming for me and for a lot of other people. There's just a lot of moving parts. It's not simple like it was in the 50s where you just, I don't know, things just, maybe they weren't, but it looks to me like back then life was a much simpler thing to encounter. But in that chaos, I have what I call my North Star. And for me, it comes from Buddhism, which is do the right thing. To me, it's just so simple. Like if you just stop and take a deep breath and ask yourself, what's the right thing to do right now? And oftentimes it's not something you really want to do. It's probably the more difficult thing to do, the more challenging thing to do. And not every time, but most of the time choose that. You're probably going to have a pretty good life.
Agreed.
Yeah, but turning it to you, do you have a core guiding star that that's what you reflect off of when everything's chaos?
So I always say I keep my side of the fence clean. That's mine.
Another way to put it.
Yeah, my side of the fence is always clean. What happens over here isn't my responsibility. Then the other part is I do the hardest thing first, and then the rest is easy. So whatever's challenging me, I deal with right away.
Yeah.
I don't run from it. I run toward it. You can tell living in San Diego, a new surfer from a senior surfer by one thing called the duck dive. A new surfer sees a wave coming. They freak out. They hold on to their board and it hits them and pushes them down, breaks them in the board in half. A senior surfer does a duck dive. They go right into the belly of that wave and they dip to the other side. It's called the duck dive. Mm-hmm. And I realized that's what most successful people do. We duck dive towards our challenges. We don't run from them. And when you deal with them head on, they tend to get rid of them right on the spot. But there's the big thing. I live a life that's called non-attached. Detached means you don't care. That's not a good way to live. But non-attached means when I do a book, I give it everything I got. But as soon as I birth it, I'm not responsible. Whether people like it, they dislike it, if it's great, I just did the best I could do, but I'm not attached to the outcome. And that gives me the freedom to go to the next project. And that's why I believe I've been able to do so many. Like all my books, some have been amazing, some have been stinkers. But what happens, I don't focus on that. I just focus on the next one.
You just said something that I say to the artists I work with here a lot because, high-level dudes I work with and gals. In that genre of people, they're very critical of themselves. That's probably why they perform so well creatively. But I can see sometimes where that drive for perfection can have like a negative effect because they're beating themselves up a lot. And I always tell them that same thing. I'm like, look, let me ask you a question. This painting you did a month ago, when you painted it, were you trying your absolute best to create the best thing you've ever made in your creative career? Yes, I was. And you're telling me now you think it sucks. Yes, I do. Don't worry about that. At that moment, in that moment in time, you gave it your all. What else could you have done? And then immediately let go. Don't stay attached to that and get on to the next thing. Yeah, because you can really defeat yourself by that internal dialogue of I suck. And really all you can ever do every day is give it your all, right?
See, I've always embraced all my flaws. It's so strange. Most people run away from it. I just run toward it. So for example, again, we mentioned I'm dyslexic. I can't spell. I can't read. I can't write very good. You play me words with friends, you'll win every single time. Yeah, I'm a world-acclaimed best-selling author. I got a star on the Walk of Fame for writing books, and I can't even read my own stuff. And the secret is you work your strengths and you hire your weaknesses. So I'm a good orator, and I know I'm creative. And so what I do is I'll go out and interview the most amazing people, and then I explain to my ghostwriters what I did, and they'd craft it in a way that people would want to read it. When I did the first book, and I got turned down 268 times, it was horrible, the book I did. It was like a boy wants a bike, gets off his ass, mows lawns, makes money, buys a bike. It comes back to me from my ghostwriter. Glorious Sunday afternoon when a young bright-eyed lad caught the entrepreneurial spirit as he went outside to greet the new day. And they wrote it in a way. I worked my strengths. I hired my weaknesses. Most people are afraid of that. They're afraid to let go or be exposed. I say live into that and step into that. Surround yourself with people that excel at something you might have a challenge with. Great things are possible.
Well put. Well, you kind of teed into something I was going to ask you. What is, I mean, obviously you just explained a weakness, your dyslexia is a weakness. And take that aside, what do you think is a weakness that you have or something about you would like to change, still like to change?
I hold on too long to people. I think that's like one of the things we all have in common, especially when we're, little codependency / people pleaser / what have you. So what happens is that I will not tolerate negativity. So that part I'll get rid of right away. There's no negativity in my world whatsoever, but I'll hold on to someone sometimes that don't excel at their chosen field of endeavor. And I do my best to find a way that they can excel at a different thing. So for example, Good to Great, the great book. If I hire someone to do accounting and I find out they can't do accounting very good, but they could do customer service, I have no problem switching their role. But sometimes I'll hold on to them doing bad accounting maybe a little bit longer than I should before I switch them. So that's one thing that, I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. I think we've all done that. You're right. And, it's just because you got a lot of love and you want to
Gotta
see people.
love.
Yeah. And you want to see people succeed.
Exactly.
And sometimes maybe they don't deserve that 8th chance, but you find yourself giving them the 8th chance. And then a year later, you're like, I should have cut that dude off at the 5th one.
Or just move them to a different direction or love them out. And so I've got this thing about saying stop. This is interesting, but back to the attitude, because this to me is the most important. Because again, expertise you can manipulate, you can hire someone else. It's not really affecting me, but negativity affects us all, and I refuse to live in that. So my idea of stop works like this. I'm working on a book right now. It's called The Secret of Happiness. For 2 years, I interviewed all these people to find out what happiness is, and I realized it comes down to stop. If someone walked into your house and your wife was in there, and they had a trash bag and it was full of dirty diapers, rotten cheese, old milk, and started dumping it into the living room, what would she say? Stop. And she'd tell you, get out of here. What are you doing? Get the hell out of my house. Yet for some reason, we'll open up our brains and let people dump in it and we just sit and take it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned the power of stop. So if someone starts doing that in my sphere, which is very rare, I say, stop. I appreciate what you're going through, and I hope someone can help you with that. But right now, I need to focus on this. I have no problem setting my boundary.
Good advice. I think there's a lot of people out there who've stayed attached to a relationship or a business plan or anything way too long when they knew in their heart, like you said that to me in the beginning of the interview. You're like, I was talking about cutting something loose to create something.
You already know what to do.
And so often on retrospect, when you see those relationships or those business things and you can just see so clearly, I knew way long ago and I just kept hanging on. Why? That's always a question. Answer that question and you grow. If you know why you're doing that, a lot of times it's a need to be loved and accepted. I think in us all is wired a tribal instinct to gain the acceptance and respect of all humans. And sometimes that human is a destructive force in your life and you're still pining for this person to be a part of it. And what am I doing? This person's just ruining everything. That's good advice. I think that's great advice.
Yeah. It's also having the open mind. Again, you can train or rehire or associate with skill set, but it's the attitudes that I think you can't change. Again, I'm not a psychologist and that's not my job. So for example, the gal that works with me right now, I love her. She's so amazing, but she came on to do accounting and CRMs and all this stuff, but she's really good at hosting these live events I do. I mean, she is the best you can get. And I was so frustrated because this job wasn't doing well. So instead of like ridiculing her on that part of it, I brought in another accountant to give her access. So now all of a sudden she's got someone that can work with her and it's done. And then I realized by making my, flight arrangements, things of this nature, doing my PA stuff, that's not her strong side. Her strong side is hosting live events. So I hired a new PA and now they're working together. And I'm thinking to myself, I should have done this that way the entire time from the beginning. I was trying to get a Swiss Army knife that would do everything. And I needed someone just to do these individual things.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that in my own management team. I've been through a few of those where I'm like trying to get this person to do this job and they're doing something else really well.
Yeah.
And I'm having meeting after meeting. Why can't you get this right? It's like, that's not their thing.
They're not their thing. And as soon as I'm telling you right now, but if their attitude's good and they're attempting things, but they're not good, just have them work their strength.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Consumerism, capitalism. Okay. I quite enjoy living in this country. I like a capitalistic environment. I do well in it. I am a consumer. I have a lot of things. For some reason, I want more things. I starting to really look at that more. What's wrong with my current TV? Does it need to be 12 inches larger? Why? Ask myself that. But when I look at the whole model we're living in, especially the consumer aspect, you have any thoughts on that? I mean, it just seems to be, I don't know, if you looked at us, like if you were an alien flying over the world and just kind of observed us, especially the West, I think we would look a little bit fucking crazy what we're doing. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people, they get in their car every morning, they drive to the job they don't like, they work there, they come home, they get that paycheck just to go buy a bigger television or a new toy, another thing. It seems to me we're a species kind of a little bit addicted to the dopamine rush of stuff. And I don't know if I do think that there's a spiritual awakening happening in our culture, and maybe AI will tee into that. And in 12, 15, 50 years, we might be moving through this evolution to something greater and bigger, to where we value love and community and things like this above toys and televisions and the shit we buy. And the newest iPhone, got to have the iPhone fucking 18, can't have the 17, this whole thing. What are your thoughts around consumerism and our addiction to stuff in this country?
It's heavy. it's thick, man. It is so interesting. Wherever you go, no matter where you travel, you see the same thing. It's so funny. I took my son to New York this week, and we just got back, and it was interesting. Guess what? There was a Starbucks and a thing stuff on every corner. Everything is cloned. It's almost like we're consciously and subconsciously trained to follow this little cycle of which we do. On the same note, the old keeping up with the Joneses, I think comes down to why we're doing it. So if it's to do it just because someone else has it, that's probably not a great way to live life. But if you spend time and you're a filmmaker, that's just an example, and you want a bigger TV screen, a higher definition to watch movies on to see how you're going to make your movie, is completely different energy than just to have it, just to have it. Mm-hmm. So
the why
is
the important one.
Yeah, it's so funny. During COVID, I had the biggest epiphany I had. It was called death style. I know it's going to sound weird, but I walked outside. And
I like the starting point.
Exactly. I walked outside and I said, I got one heck of a lifestyle. My lifestyle's insane. It's not even fair. It's a dream. And I go, I've got a great lifestyle. I go, but what would my death style look like? And I go, what does that mean? I go, well, if I pass today, would my son be set up with his life insurance money and things of this nature to continue life? Yes. Did I leave a legacy behind in my books? Yes. Did I do that? Yes. Did I at least do the best actions to get health care while I go? Yes. I went, I got a good death style. And that changed everything for me. And then what happened is I had a rebirthing, and I said, all the stuff I haven't used in a year, you've heard this a million times, I donated to AmVets. I got him coming this week, as a matter of fact. Same thing. So once a year I go through and say, look, if I got shoes in my closet that got dust on them, they're going to go to someone else that could actually use shoes. And so I do that, and I filter all the time.
Good point. Yeah, don't hoard.
Hoarding is
attachment. You're talking about attachment.
Correct.
I work so damn hard, that thing costs $500 and you'll just die with it, even if you never use it again, because
exactly. One of my employees has just bought a new house, and I said, as soon as you close, and it closes in 2 weeks, come to the house, anything out of the house, no matter what it is, you can have it for your house. And I said it to another person. They go, why? I go, because I'm not attached. You go, you want my dining table? I'll get another dining table, but that would be really cool for you to have. Or you want the pool table, or you want whatever. So I think it's kind of cool when you live that non-attached life.
Yeah, I think we nailed it. Yeah, what you have is nice. Being attached to what you have, not a good place to find yourself.
Not good.
No, because then all those things become anchors.
Yeah.
Because to have them brings you supposedly joy, but to not have them could bring you misery. So now your well-being and the way you feel is attached to stuff, which ultimately you can't take any of that shit with you anyway.
And it's part of your identity. For example, we have, we drive nice cars, but we have one really nice car. And so my son, I go, look, I'd like to downsize and move maybe to a penthouse downtown, and we'd have to get rid of all this stuff, but you can't sell the car. And it's interesting how his attachment, I think his identity is to that,
Right.
Especially at 11-year-olds.
Well, at that age, we all were that way.
Exactly. I don't give it. I get rid of it and get a new one. It doesn't really make a difference, but it's interesting how we do that.
Yeah, it is. I think we should all check in on that attachment to things. And I like what you said too about the why you're after a goal or a dream or a car or a house. These are all nice things to have, but why you're seeking them out is a good question to ask yourself. Because if it's just to keep up with the Joneses, probably not good. You probably don't even need it.
Yeah.
But if it's something that actually serves you, brings you pleasure, brings you joy, brings you comfort, why not?
Correct. For example, I rent my house, and people think I'm crazy because, why don't I go buy his giant estate? And I said, I like my freedom. But on the phone, on the drive here, talking about buying more investment properties that I can rent out, but I like to rent where I live. And because I have got that freedom, at any time I can get up and I can move, I can go wherever I want to go. So I have freedom. So that freedom to me is priceless.
That's also one of the big lessons from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where I think he talked about that. Like everyone thinks that owning a home is what you should do. And his whole thing was, you don't need to own a home. In fact, don't buy a home for yourself. Buy 3 rental properties and rent a house, right? He built this whole, it's like, it shook me up because it was just counterintuitive. Like, no. You get a job, you buy a house. That's the first thing you do. And he was like, really? Let's look at this from an unattached way.
Yes.
You just need somewhere to live, right?
Right.
So you've got $100K you can put down on a house. You could buy your own home, call it yours. Or you could buy 2 rental properties and rent a house. Right. Now, 5 years later, you've got this equity. You roll that. And he just this whole thing. And it comes from a position of a guy who's looking at life from an unattached perspective, not being attached to the idea of being a homeowner. That's interesting you do that.
Well, the person who actually wrote that with him is a woman named Sharon Lecter. And what's interesting is Sharon Lecter and
Who
him
wrote this book with you.
Correct. And so this is a circle of life. So when the Rich Dad, Poor Dad relationship between Sharon and Robert ended and had its change, she came on with me right afterwards, and we did this book together.
I'm glad I brought that up. I didn't know. I've read the book many years ago, but I didn't know it was her. That's cool.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad is one of the greatest books ever written.
Oh, I loved it. I didn't follow the advice as closely as it was laid out, I will admit. But it's good advice.
But it's good. Many receive good advice. Not everyone profits from it. I get that.
Well, man, I like it. You don't waste time. You get right to the point. I like your style. This is Chats and Tatts. So I just want to bring up tattoo. You just got your first tattoo. You're 60 years old.
That's right.
And when did you get it? When?
I just got this year, just recently, in January.
For everyone who's listening, it's a little microphone with your
SK logo, Secret Knock.
Oh, for this. Oh, we should talk about Secret Knock.
Yeah.
Too.
So that's what it is. It's interesting. On stage, I was just joking. And I said, hey, anyone gets a Secret Knock, my logo, tattooed on their body can come to the event for free. And everyone lined up to do it. I went, what? And I said to myself, I go, they talk about branding. The whole idea is branding. That's the ultimate branding when people want to get branded with your logo on there. And then someone said, well, you got to do it for yourself if you're having other people do it. So I did. So there you go.
That's cool. Any plans for more?
I'm willing to do one more. I'd like to do my son's name Colt somewhere. I don't know where. Maybe here, just COLT. I think would be kind of cool.
Well, I wish we would have talked. We probably could have set it up for today. We're not going to do that today. I don't think that's the plan. But you know a guy.
I know a guy.
You know a guy now. So
nice.
When that time comes, I got you.
There you go.
I got you. Secret Knock. Tell us a little bit about this.
So I started an event. It was kind of like George Costanza Opposite Day. If you ever watch the Seinfeld from back in the day.
I probably saw it.
Yeah. So the whole idea is he did everything opposite. And I realized these live events, they'd have like a flyer with bubble circles with everyone's picture and what you're going to learn. And I go, I don't like that. So I said, I'm going to start an event where it costs a lot of money to go. It's $5,000 a ticket, but I will not tell you where it is or who will be there. We did 17 years ago, and it's been sold out 6 months early every single time for 17 years.
It's once a year?
Once a year.
When?
Next year, I'm going to do 2, though. I'm going to do one here in San Diego and one in Vegas. March in San Diego here, right here, actually, on the street. And then the other one's going to be in Las Vegas.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the idea is instead of coaches, teachers, mentors, I just bring in the actual person who did what everyone's talking about. So for example, I can't tell you who's coming this next one, but I'll tell you who's been. So we did a private Skype with Edward Snowden while he's hiding in Russia. When you're watching CNN, I wanted to hear it right from him, what's going on. We just brought in Carol Baskin from Tiger King, say, hey, I didn't kill my husband from her point of view. We brought in everyone from President Vicente Fox, who said, here's how George Bush tried to trick me to go to war. We've had everyone from Oscar winners to, our concept is, look, if you want to start a clothing line, go to the taco bar. There's a guy who started Ugg boots. If you got an idea for a board game, here's a guy who did Pictionary. If you hung around with the people who are actually done what everyone else is talking about, you cut 15 years of learning curve off your life.
That's pretty sweet, dude. I think I'm going to have to come to this.
It's insane.
How many days is it?
Well, they're different all the time. This next one will be 3 days in March and 2 days in September next year. And it's absolutely incredible. And our whole idea is there's no name tags. There's no registration. You can't go unless you know somebody. So our whole thing is we're known as the greatest event you cannot attend. You have to know someone, be invited, or you have to go to our website, fill out an application, and then someone calls you to make sure you're not a wackerdoodle. Because we only surround ourselves with positive, like-minded people. You'd love it, man. It's just like
So
us.
this is my invitation?
That's your official invitation.
All right.
And most people are going like, why am I going to pay $5,000 to go to a place I don't know where it's at? We tell you the city, the state, the date, so you can make your flight reservations. But that's it. But I will tell you this, when you're there, you'll meet people that most people could only dream of.
That's really cool. That's very cool. Great idea. 17 years ago?
17 years. Yeah, this will be our 18th year we're going on now.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Oh, when I did this book, 3 Feet from Gold, I invited 350 people to go meet all these people, and no one showed up. And it became this book just took off. And then people said, how do I meet your friends? And so in my living room, I said, well, come, I'll invite a few of them. And 12 people showed up. And they said, you need a ticket? I said, no, just knock on the door. Bump, bada, bump, bump.
And there's a secret, yeah.
And they went and told people, and now we've never ran an ad. We've never seen a promotion, nothing.
Word of mouth only.
And it sells out 6 months early.
How many people come to them? I mean, what was the last one?
350. It's whatever the venue will hold. So
Right.
if it holds 1,000, 1,300, 200, whatever it
Right.
holds. Yeah.
Well, just rough numbers. I was just wondering if you had like 5,000 people at these things.
We've never done them that big. I'm not opposed to it, but I love the idea of, you don't know who you're sitting there. There's no name tag. So you're sitting in a chair next to someone. I go, coming to the stage is the guy who invented the credit card magnetic strip and change banking. And he was sitting right next to you, and he comes up on stage.
That's cool.
I'm bringing up to the stage is the person. It's pretty cool. The guy just walked in space 7 times. Here he is. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, that's very awesome. You've got me intrigued. Well, I'm sure a lot of people listening too will be intrigued. Well, today was really great. I'm glad we got connected to Michelle through Verb Media, who handles my show. I'm stoked. She told me I would love you. I do. You've got, boom, buddy, boom. I really appreciate you making some time to come down and hang with me. I have a feeling we're going to see more of each other. And I hope everybody listening got some good advice for their own personal lives today. I don't know how you couldn't. If you missed too much of it, go look him up. Plenty of books he's written that you can read. I'm holding one of them right in front of me right now. 3 Feet from Gold, which I will be reading soon. I'm actually leaving on a vacation Saturday. I needed a little something poolside. I think this is going to be the one. Obviously, the universe gave that to me for a reason.
And I want to get one last nugget as we leave. Out of all my interviews, I've interviewed people, everyone around the world. And if people say, what's your favorite one? It's like picking your favorite child. And it was from a poet and a philosopher, a wordsmith named Evander Holyfield. The boxing guy?
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming. And I said, Evander, how did you win more heavyweight championships than anyone? And he said, I have a higher standard. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, in sports, I showed up early, I left late. I invented exercises. I had a higher standard and I won more championships. He goes, where could you be in your own business if you raise your standard? I said, but didn't it hurt being in a fight? He says, yeah. He says, but when you're in a fight, you don't focus on the pain. You don't focus on the blows. As soon as you do, you end up on your back knocked out. But that's what people do outside the ring. They focus on gas prices, war, economy, and then they wonder why they never become a champion. He pulled me in tight, this Adonis of a man missing half an ear bitten off by Tyson. He says, the funny thing is when you do win the championship, he says, everyone comes to their feet and they chant your name. They raise your hand in victory and they put a big shiny belt around your waist. He said, at that moment and at that second, you don't feel even one of the punches you took along the journey. But the guy in the losing locker room has every bruise, every excuse for the rest of their life, wishing they had a higher standard.
Good, man. I can't think of a better way to close. Bro, thank you so much. High five to that. I'm going to take that one with me. Thank you for tuning in. Please keep those subscriptions coming. Likes, dislikes. Tell me what you want, what you don't want. I'm loving it. You guys have been giving me some great feedback and support. I appreciate all the fans out there. And stay tuned for next week. We got some good stuff coming your way. Peace out.